with everything that's going on, with everything that goes on with this, is with my mom's house being trashed and having people over and everybody that was stealing money, getting free paychecks and all this other shit, it's all too late. There were so many friends that went to that house. None of them were straight, and I didn't know. But when you start trying to help my mother and you start trying to help this, how do you think that's all going to correlate against me? None of it's going to be good, because they can use in exchange. I was so abused at that house, and I was so abused of other people taking advantage of the situation. I couldn't even put the magnitude of what that was. And the fact that Frankie suffered for that very horrifically, it doesn't change. The money's no good. It's just, there's nothing that can be done. It's such a tragedy, because no one understands that type of suffering. That Frankie almost feels like he has to suffer like that in order to give something to my mother and to give something to the family. And that's exactly what he's doing, because he knew that my mother had done this, and he knew that she just really couldn't do anything, because the boss is putting her down. I could never, the guilt that I have on the guilt that I have that's so disfiguring is the idea that I did this to Frankie, that I had, you don't understand how much of a fight I would have wanted to put up for Frankie, but you don't understand how well Sarah Cooper did this, and the white supremacist that did this, that played along with this shit, because you always want to feel compassion for old fuck. You always want to feel compassion to the president's favorite, Sarah Palin. The magnitude of hatred, everyone did it for them. And I couldn't express that enough, that I would have never done this to Frankie. It never got bad until I was always wanting to ask Frankie questions. What happened? What's going on? Where's the money? What happened to the money? All these different things, because Frankie has a conditioning and understanding to it that's so different, that Sarah and Ken knew that Frankie was being raped. They knew about it. So the psychologists and everything, they did it on purpose. It was just so many of them. But the guilt that I had, the fact that he's the brother that I'm with in that house, and I would have wanted to put up a fight, and I couldn't. It's too late now. But you're going to get a deputy story for Kenneth, and a beautiful princess story for Madison, because my biological father had another kid, a little girl, and he probably did. And then that's how you just erase that one, and over there, so... But it's, I thought I'd make a video on that. So, I think that in fact, I know that the interpretation for those that want to care about someone, I think they can care so much, but they don't understand how the process of what Frankie's dealing with, how he feels and functions and senses of, I'm just going to deal with it, it's not a problem. I'm just going to keep getting raped, and then don't worry about it. It's okay, fine. I'm just going to go about my business and doing all these things, because he doesn't understand that all that suffering isn't going to go to him, and it didn't. And then when someone came into the picture, it didn't again. And really, what he's doing in the meantime, while I think about my childhood or what he went through and did. Nobody understands that I'm by his side all the time. Like, I'm a very aggressive, I'm very firm when I'm very young. It's always around Frankie, like, where's Frankie? Like, oh, let's go play soccer. Oh, what are you doing, Frank? Oh, actually, what's going on with you? What's going on with you? Just checking in. It wasn't conflicting and fighting ever, like, until we got older, until Sarah and Ken got into the picture. We're about, when I was about 12, and then 14, 15, he knew that he had to take the role of sort of this father kind of figure because there was intruders showing up, and it was them, and it was going to be Kenneth giving my mom a hug. You know, Madison is growing up, and it bothers me so much because going through 11 fully grown men raping your ass, the humility of that, the just degrading at the magnitude of Michael Jackson, in my opinion, it's, you know, the gas chambers. Throw them in a room and give them a rope, and just let them look at that rope, wanting to hope to put it around their fucking neck. You know, like, you're so angry, you're so mad because this is not from me being hatred, you know, not literally to kill themselves. I know it sounds so horrible, but it's an idea that when this is not the fact that I'm just trying to say how much you got, Sarah, how much you got, Kenneth and Madison. Though I know how they function, they have no discipline. They just see what they can take, dissect, and then keep moving forward. The brutal punishment. I'm not getting anything from my dad. I'm not getting anything from Frankie. I didn't get shit from my mother. Michael Party, drugs. Who's next? You know, all the other friends. It doesn't change. I didn't ever had a car, nothing. And I always have to feel that, and I always have to throw it in the garbage can. You know, it's just like, and I can't because the President of the United States gave the order. And it's at the magnitude that's so irreversible. You know, it's a suicide mission in itself, in my opinion. It's 100% suicide. It's such a suicide and such a selfish act because there's people that feel so content. They feel so content. It's like people that live in these apartments, not these apartments, maybe, but there's people that live in an apartment like the one I do, and they feel so content with how they live. Little desk, or whatever it is, get the little TV programs, and they just target people. There's no suicidal in them. It's just hurting and put pain and suffering, and they feel content. And they're long runners. They do it all the way to their 400 years old. They don't eat toxic food. They just eat their TV dinners, and it doesn't affect them. Nothing will ever stop them. Nothing will. And they go and just keep doing that because that's the enticing, that's the evil shit that they're wanting to do. It's very dark and very cynical, this behavior, because they just do that. They're not mentally considering and finding excuses because they wanted a freeload, and they get this, I'm the higher class of people, and I'm just how white people did it because it's the 60s and 70s how they did it. But to have all that stuff sort of be put on a table, and it's an emptiness expression that I really feel that I can't. I'm not being allowed to talk about Frankie's personality. What do you do when you see all these celebrities and these other people find out how many people you got fucked by, you got raped by 10, 11 people? The president, American flag. Let me show you the burn victim, the missing legs and arms, and battlefield. Michael Jackson, emotion, and Jesus Christ, it's such a bad situation. Because every emotional trail people are already thinking of, and where you are going to be thinking of, and what you're likely to do, and what moves they can do that immediately are shoot with sniper shots. Obviously what happened to me with that transgender, that was a kill shot. That killed me right away. That was it. That was done. That finished me off. That was a kill shot, without a doubt. But understanding that, I knew nothing that was going on. And, it bothers me because it still bothers because it's just like I wasn't able to retaliate and take other people's lives the way I felt like, it wasn't just in the sense of wanting to fight, it was justice. It was, because they're just coming to steal your shit. They're just coming to take what you have and the little that you had, you suffered excruciatingly in ways that it was just, it's hard to comprehend, that they understand that they're just stealing from the poor because he's selfish. They're still going to get it, and they still did, and you still have the dead bodies, the rapes that happen, and it doesn't change. And then I have to just do the same thing, to just say forgiveness story, because that's what the plan was. I sure hope Frankie's okay and there's some sort of surprise, but I know that there isn't. I know that there isn't. He's, he's not all there, and I just can't do anything about it. There would never be justice for that, but there's a sense of always guilt. Like when I called him, from in Japan, when we argued before he left, I feel really bad that whenever we were burying my father, I literally looked at Frankie. I said, "Where's the $50,000?" And my dad is like buried in the other room. He's in a morgue. I mean, he's has a sheet over him. I think they moved him downstairs, but he was in the room just right next door with a sheet over him. We had to identify his body. I did, Frankie did, and the fact that Richard Palomo, Nan, and Robert Palomo goes, "Hey, we'll talk later." And I look over, and Robert knows that Frankie was raped by Miguel, because he looked directly over at Miguel when he gave his speech at the funeral. And the fact is that Frankie, I'm looking at Frankie, and I'm like angry. I'm like, "What did you do with the money? Like, what did you do? What happened? Well, tell me what's going on." There's just a lot of money. It just disappears, and we have a dead body here. So where's the money? What happened? What's going on? Where did you go? Where's the paperwork? What the heck's going on? And Frankie just kind of looks at me and just goes, and you could tell that everyone in the room was like looking at him like, "What did you do?" Like, and he didn't say anything, and he was just like, and it wasn't a sense of about to cry. It was just kind of like, and he kind of had this sort of a little bit kind of like a smirk kind of expression that is just kind of like the way I remember him when we were living at the house. The way he expressed himself is he just keeps moving forward, and just, it wasn't like, it's not a military or a president moving forward. It's just like, and I know that the way that he was, that like even when he cried, and I made him cry when we were talking in my room and I was staying over the mixer, and I immediately knew that he was just like saying like, "I just wanted to be alive. I just wanted to have peace and be alive and I wanted to not have. I just wanted to be alive and do fun, or not fun, but not have all these bad things ever happening to me. I just didn't want all these bad things happening to me." And this is and it's such a troubled experience, to have something like that, because we all know the burn veteran, missing legs and arms, and it's difficult. He was a good kid, never. I don't think I ever one time saw him argue with my mom, like ever. He went and talked to her, like he was like, and he just kind of go to his room like my dad was, like sort of his attitude, like looking at her, she doesn't know what's going on. We got to figure out something. Yeah, I got to figure out. Mom doesn't really know, but he never one time ever that I can ever remember. I'm like 100% on this. He never raised his voice, but never argued with my mom. Like when he talked to my mom, he always talked to her very soft, like, "Mom, well, Mom," like kind of like that. It was never screaming. He never raised his voice ever. He raised his voice at my dad and knocked him down a couple times, but never at my mother. Never. He was always like he looked at my mother like if like he was just like, "Mom, like, oh," and it was just sort of expression. He's standing by the washer, he's looking at her. When I used to come into the house and when they talked or something was going on. So there's, it's a difficult situation because, the splitting of the pie is so unfair. Like, he's not passing out anything. It's going to entirely different people. And what we worked for that time didn't go to us. They're just using us. It's never ours, using us. They take, steal, and then later, surprise. But, it's a lot of guilt that I feel like I would have never done that. Had I known that this happened to Frank, I would have, I would have not think Frankie took off with all this money. I would have never gone along with this with Robert. I never would have gone along with this with Richard. I would have talked to them and be like, did you know about what happened? Michael Palomo, Sarah Cooper, and it's difficult. It's difficult to talk about because Frankie didn't like Sarah. I mean, there was nothing pleasant and friendly about it. I never with Ken, when they charged at my mother, it was bad. Like, and it's difficult. They had their team clean up for them. And, I think, in my opinion, Frankie would have rather wanted to give it to me or give it to Julian or give it, to himself than just give it to some sort of stranger that, and then split it up in pies, split up his ass. And I was there to be part of that experience, and there's a huge guilt that I have that, like, I would have defended him, so much. I would have never let him go off and tootle off with I would have worked as a team. But Robert, Ken Cooper and Sarah knew there was dilemma between Frankie, and they used that when they were communicating, and they were manipulating that. So it's too late. But I would have had my ammunition right at them along with Frankie, without a fucking doubt. But it's so selfish and absorbed that you have to give it to the cross, because this is what the cross is for. There's nothing that some people will ever pay for it. For some reason, they do so many bad things. There are some people that just do, with that intention, they don't ever pay for it, and their kids were responsible for doing that. Kenneth was, and they're going to keep layering it, and they're going to keep making excuses, and they're going to keep then matching it up with someone else's excuse, and then they're going to keep because those slimy people don't know what hard work is. They don't know what suffering is. They think they understand what suffering is. They don't know what it is to go hungry. The experiences of Christmases, the experience of here's a credit card, go shopping, here's a credit card, eat all your food at Fun Time Pizza. We didn't have any of that shit when I was growing up. So, it's very manipulative, outsmarting. Whether my mom has, Marco is one of Kenneth's sides of the family. I could never express it. Frankie's bending over all over again. And, but there's a huge guilt of me that's saying, like, I would have not behaved this way had I known. Like, you don't understand that now my mother's doing this to him because there's nothing that can be done.